Like a tree, we each must find a place to grow and branch out. With this beautiful quotation, we are going to discuss this new topic in the legal history, that is Bengal Judicature Act of 1781 or Amending Act of 1781. Hi, I am Dr. Prashant Dhage, Assistant Professor, Department of Humanities, the Bhopal School of Social Sciences. So under this topic, we will discuss this sub-point which is important towards to cover the rest of the part of this topic, that is background, which is most important to understand this 1781 Amendment Act. Second is reason for passing this act, why it was need to pass this act. Third, aim of this act, that means aims and objectives of this act. Most important part in this topic, that is the key provision of this act which we have to consider, and we have to think deeply over these provisions which is made by this act, and the impact of this act on judiciary, impact of this act on social, political and administrative structure in India. So first of all, we will consider here the background of this act of settlement. Under this background, though the Regulating Act of 1773 brought a major change in the government system, that means they introduced the judiciary, they introduced the administrative system, they introduced the political system as well. By this act, they established Supreme Court, they established Executive Council and the Governor General. But it was failure to decide the jurisdiction of these three institutions which playing a major part in the Indian administrative system. Between 1779 to 1780, the Executive Council, this Executive Council means the Governor General in Council, filed so many petitions against the Supreme Court because of their improper working, because of they were not following the judicial protocols which were required by the Indian Constitution. Third one was this petition, similar petition was filed by the various zamindars, company servants and so on. That means somewhere the peoples from the Bengal, peoples from the Orissa, people from the Bihar were not satisfied from the judgment and from the working culture of the Supreme Court, as Supreme Court was trying to put itself like a supreme authority in India, and that was not digested by all the section of the life, all the sections of the Bengal provinces, and that's why so many petitions were filed against the Supreme Court. Now the government was thinking about we need to take some steps towards to understand, discover, to investigate the loopholes in the 1773 Regulating Act. As government received so many complaints, so many petitions from Bengal, Bihar and Orissa, from the Executive Council and from the Governor General. So they have decided to make some decisive step towards to see the amendment, towards to see the enactment in the Act of 1773. So they appointed one committee, that is called a Touchet Committee. Touchet Committee submitted their report, and after this report, they have decided to make some amendment, to make some enactment in the 1773 Regulating Act. On 5th of July 1781, British Parliament passed this act, and it was decided that it will remove rest of the defects which came out in the 1773 Regulating Act. This act was also popularly known as the Amending Act of 1781 or Declaratory Act of 1781 or the Bengal Judicature Act. That means this act passed to remove the loopholes, the drawbacks, the demerits of the 1773 Regulating Act. So in these slides, we are going to discuss the reasons for passing this Act of Settlement 1781. As government has already been passed this 1773 Regulating Act, then why it was need to pass one more amendment, one more enactment in the judicial administration? That's why we need to understand what were the reasons, what were the causes where the government has decided to make one more amendment. That is this This 1773 Regulating Act instituted Supreme Court, Governor General in Council, and itself they have designated the post of Governor General. But it could not clarify the jurisdiction of these three major institutions which were playing a major role, vital role in the judicial system, in the administrative system. Though it was introduced a new administrative system, though it was introduced a new administrative or judicial machinery, but because of these lackings, so many crises, the cleavages were arose among these institutions, and that's why they have decided to see the new amendments or to see the new enactments in this 1773 Regulating Act. After that, when they implemented the 1773 Act, some major cases arose when the Supreme Court has given the decree of judgment during the cases of Patna case, Kausi Jurra case, and Raja Nanda Kumar case. Raja Nanda Kumar case, it is one of the popular case in the judicial administration. Raja Nanda Kumar was hanged by the judgment of the Supreme Court, and that capital punishment considered as a judicial murder. JUDICIAL, judicial murders. Judicial murder. That means somewhere there are so many loops and loopholes and so many drawbacks in the working culture of the Supreme Court. That's why it has to be removed by making some enactments. So also Supreme Court was trying to put itself as a supreme authority, and that's why they were trying to intervene in the religious matter. They were trying to intervene in the Indian cultures and traditions, and people are getting worried about to see this working culture of the Supreme Courts. People were demanding to minimize or to restrict the authority of the Supreme Court towards, as they were trying to interfere or intervene in the religious matter, in the personal law, we say within the personal law. So the basic and the fundamental aims of this act was to establish a new system of courts to remove the grievances against the Supreme Court. That means somewhere they were thinking about to introduce a new system or to introduce a new policy where it will establish or where it can be instituted a new institutions or new network in the judicial administration. The failure of the Regulating Act's aim of controlling administration through judiciary. 1773 Regulating Act tells us about the government was trying to create administrative structure, create the political background or political platform on the basis of this 1773 Regulating Act, but it failed to achieve this aim, and that's why it was required to introduce a new system. It was required to instituted a new administrative machinery or judicial machinery in India. Now we are going to consider the aim of this act. The aim of this act will tells us about what was the aims and objectives towards to pass this Amending Act of 1781. To remove the ambiguity between the Supreme Court and the Council, Executive Council, Governor General in Council, that they were increasing the crisis, increasing the cleavages among these two institutions, and that's why it was required to settle down their disputes and to make the administrative system more efficient towards to make a better result or better government. To support the lawful government and Bengal, Bihar and Orissa so that the revenue could be collected smoothly. That means Bengal, Bihar and Orissa was the prominent area towards to get the maximum revenue from this territory. So when we supposed to implement this act, it will work to get a maximum revenue, it will get a maximum output from these three areas, from these three territories, Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. That time Bengal was comprised by this Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. It was one of the largest province in India, and that's why they were trying to make amendment to consider the Bengal province as a fruitful land for the British East India Company. Again, to maintain and protect the laws and customs of the native peoples, as peoples were not satisfied from the practice of the Supreme Court. It constantly intervene in the religious matters of the Bengali people. Supreme Court was trying to put itself as a supreme authority in Bengal. In all three presidencies, not only in Bengal, in all the three presidencies. And that's why, because of this practice of the Supreme Courts, peoples are trying to stay away from this jurisdiction of the Supreme, from the authority of the Supreme Court. And that's why they have decided we need to keep away from all this jurisdiction of Supreme Court. People wanted to get freedom from the jurisdiction of Supreme Court because Supreme Court was trying to intervene in rest of the religious matter. These slides introduce the key provisions of the Amending Act or the Act of Settlement. This is the major part of this slide, of this topic. First, that is change in the powers of the Supreme Court. Change in the power of the Supreme Court. Most important change which has been carried out by this Act of Settlement. That means they restricted the geographical area of Supreme Court. Now Supreme Court became Supreme Court at Calcutta. Supreme Court at Calcutta. That means the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court would be restricted up to the Calcutta. He will consider only the cases from the habitats of Calcutta. The government now became independent of the control of the court in the matter of revenue. Most important thing they have introduced in this provision, that means government is only responsible, government is only having the authority to collect the revenue and to see the cases related to the revenue, related to any civil cases, civil suits which is going to be the collection of the revenue. Executive Council introduce a legislative body. Executive Council, Governor General in Council, that is called Executive Council. That means it introduced as a legislative body. It was first time that by this enactment the council was introduced as a legislative authority, legislative body. That means this council became the supreme authority, the supreme institution in India under the British East India Company. That means this legislative body will make the law and it will amend by the Supreme Court. It will execute by the other institutions. They also will make law for the Supreme Court. Supreme Court will come under this legislative body. Supreme Court will come under this legislative body. That means Executive Council became the supreme authority in India. One more thing is there, the shift of the appellate jurisdiction from court to the Governor General and Council. As I told you, it was already been mentioned in the aims and objectives of this Act of Settlement that they are going to introduce the new system, they are going to introduce the new network in the judiciary, in the judicial system. That was, as we know about this judicial system, it starts from the local courts, then district court, then High Court. That means that time during the British period, during the British East India Company, it was provincial court like today's High Court, like today's High Court. And after High Court we consider the Supreme Court. But in this case, they separated Supreme Court, and after the provincial court, the highest appellate authority became the Executive Council. and Supreme Court was, kept aside by this act. So there was no role in this chain, in this judicial network. There is no role of Supreme Court. That means it starts from local court, district court, provincial court, and highest appellate court was Executive Council. Supreme Court was only limited up to the Calcutta. So they curtailed the right and authority of the Supreme Court by this act of settlement. Last one, that is most important again, the assertion on the application of the personal laws. That means Supreme Court also consider about the feelings of the peoples, feelings of culture, feelings of tradition, customs, beliefs. That all we need to understand, because without them we cannot implement the law, we cannot rule over the Bengali peoples, over the Indian peoples. And that's why it was decided by this act, we need to consider their beliefs, we need to consider their religious thinking, their religious beliefs, as they have decided to understand and to accept the personal law. Personal law was introduced under this new judiciary system, that is Muslim law and Hindu law. Muslim law and Hindu law, which was accepted by this Amending Act of 1781. Previously, it was not considered, it was not decided by the government that we need to consider, or we need to make a codification of this personal law related to Hindu and Muslim. So in this act, we are going to consider the impact of this 1781 Amending Act. The first impact which we are going to consider here, the act gave superior authority to the council. Council means Executive Council. Council means Governor General in Council. Council became the supreme authority. It became the legislative body that they can make law. They can make law for the administration, they can make law for the judiciary, they can make law for the society. Second most important, this act made the position of the council very strong, so that could continue to have a good control over the Indian empire. It clearly says that as council became the supreme authority, now they have started to do their practice as a superior, and they were trying to make the planning to execute the law, to execute the machinery, administrative and judicial machinery, and to make such a system where they will try to put themselves in all this section of the life in India as a supreme one, and towards to all the empires present in India as those days. Third, it was the first attempt to separate the executive from judiciary. First time this act has separated the executive from the judiciary. That means the council will make the laws and the judiciary will execute accordingly the directions given by the supreme authority. But as we know about this 1781 Amending Act, though it has attempted to remove a rest of the defects found in 1773 Regulating Act, but it could not decide to make a more effective amendment towards to make the system more efficient and more skillful towards to get a maximum result from this. The attempt was to get a maximum revenue from this Indian society. The attempt was to create our threats and to establish our rule by getting the support from the common man, and that's why they have started to accept the personal law. That means Hindu law and Muslim law. Hindu law will applicable for Hindu peoples and Muslim law will applicable for the Muslim peoples. So with this entire impact, it was not just limited towards the administration and judiciary. We need to see the impact over the Indian society, in the Indian culture, or the Indian religion, or the Indian beliefs, that we can explore this impact in all the dimensions. But you need to understand that this act is not just the first amendment after the 1773. Government has made more amendments to remove the maximum defects and to make the system more useful and getting a more output from this administration. Thank you so much.